GMOs and the environment. Although the global debate on GMOs has usually allied disparate groups concerned about food safety and the environment, environmental risks are perceived to differ from food safety risk in several ways. Experience built up through decades of environmental impact studies suggests that the impact of new biological elements in ecosystems may take years or decades to be understood. The environmental impacts of introduced GMOs can be either ecological or genetic. Environmental issues and GM crops. GM crops are commercially available and planted on more than 40 million hectares across 6 continents. These plantings represent the largest scale experience in the introduction of GMOs into ecosystems, and they have become the focus of environmental concerns. Activists worry about GMOs being released into the biosphere have destroyed test plots in at least 4 continents. The majority of the area under GM crops is planted with varieties resistant to herbicides. These herbicides are associated with a shift towards less mechanical tillage in large-scale arable crops, which reduces primary soil erosion. Environmental issues and GM forestries. Research on the genetic modification of forest trees is undertaken almost exclusively with a view to application in plantation forestry. Today, forest plantations supply approximately 25% of the world's wood requirements. A major technical factor limiting the application of genetic modification to forest trees is the currently low level of knowledge regarding the molecular control of traits that are of the most interest, notably those relating to growth, stem form, and wood quality. Environmental issues and GM fish. In the fisheries sector, most GMOs show increased growth rates. Therefore, concerns about environmental risk focus more on predation, competition, and genetic pollution. GM fish may pose risks to the environment because of their increased rates of feeding on prey species, their wider environmental tolerance, which allow them to invade new territories and possibly to displace local native populations, and their potential for genetic mixing with the composition of natural fish population. Proponents of GM fish maintain that these fish will be very domesticated and will not survive well in nature. How do your genes and the environment interact? It is important to understand that most times your genes do not determine your health. Small differences in your genetic makeup mean that two people can respond differently to the same environmental exposure. Some ways that your genes and your environment can interact are mutagens. Mutagens are pollutants in the environment that enter the body and directly change your DNA sequence. Example, the chemicals in cigarette smoke can cause cancer. Gene-gene interactions. They occur when pollutants in the environment do not change your DNA sequence, but rather cause a chain reaction that affects the functioning of one gene that then affects the functioning of one gene that then affects the functioning of another gene. Example, regularly drinking way too much alcohol can cause a specific gene. Taste do not produce enough of its protein, and low levels may cause depression. Transcription factors. Pollutants in the environment can indirectly affect the DNA sequence by altering the transcription factors, which are responsible for starting the process of using genes to make proteins are needed for different functions of the body. Example, stress can change the amount of proteins made by genes involved in your immune system, and therefore you may get sick more easily when you're stressed. Epigenetics. The environment can alter your health by affecting the proteins that turn genes on or off. Example, half the genes that cause familial or inherited cancer are turned off when pollutants in the environment affect these proteins. Because they are turned off, these genes cannot suppress tumor formation or repair DNA. Some of these abnormal changes can lead to diseases such as cancer, mental retardation, neurodevelopment disorders, cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and infertility.